Good morning and welcome to Iconic Production. My name is John Matthew and I'm here. This is behind the screen where we sit around and we talk about games, things that we love, things that inspire beauty in us in gaming. And we're wrapping up a very long series on Wrath and Glory, a Warhammer 40k role-playing game that I really want to get to the table. I've done some deep dives in it. You can go back and look over our previous episodes in the Wrath and Glory line. You can see all of the beautiful art that Tink has put together for the cards. And today we're wrapping up with how I would start a Warhammer 40k Wrath and Glory campaign. Talk about what I think the strengths of Wrath and Glory are, what I would want to focus on a campaign, that sort of thing. You'll have to excuse me, I have a... Yeah. So, the thing to remember is I think for 40k you got to start small. You have to start small and focused because after all, this is not the kingdom of 40k or the city of 40k or the planet of 40k. This is the 40k universe, and there's a lot that's going on in the universe. And even with what they give you in the Wrath and Glory rulebook, they give you an entire system with 5 planets in the home world, and then rogue planets and outer planets, and comets and orc rocks and in just one city, and it can feel a little overwhelming. So I think the way to do this is to, if you've got access to all of the books, I think there's a better way to do this, but we'll start with just the Warhammer Wrath and Glory rulebook and kind of expand from there. So I think the first thing you need to do is you need to figure out what kind of game you want to run. What's the focus that you want to do? And by doing that, you're going to set 2 of the dials for the game. You're going to set your tier, which tells your players how powerful their characters can be. And you can set your framework. And again, your framework is, hey, here's the glue that holds everyone together. Here's the main focus of the game that we're going to be doing. Are we relic hunters for the ecclesiarchy? Are we space marines going out to protect Gilead from Necron threats or Tyranid threats? Are we agents of the Mechanicus who are going out into search out for new space hulks to delve and bring back STCs? There's a lot going on just in this one system. Also, before I forget, good morning to Mark and Tink and John. Always good to see you. So I think the first thing you do is you got to narrow down your framework. And part of this could be GM Fiat. Here's the game I want to run. Part of it could be, hey guys, I'm thinking of doing a tier 2 campaign. You could be either members of the ecclesiarchy, the Millistratum, or the Ministorum, and let your players kind of buy into that. But I think that the key is to narrow the focus as much as you're able. Because there's so much to do in the Warhammer 40k universe, you want to make sure that you are giving your players clear and concise goals to start off, and a clear framework, as Ross named them, for what you want the game to be about. Now, the thing is, once they get a couple of games under their belts, they get some sessions under their belts, they get some experience under their belts, you can start gradually widening it open to wherever they want to go. I think Wrath and Glory, even just the Gilead system, would do great for a sandbox campaign where you're just like, here are some hooks, here is a patron and some factions that you're affiliated with. You know, after the initial adventure, go do what you want. But for me, I think the way I would want to run Wrath and Glory is pick a patron, either create a patron or pick one out of the Forsaken system player's guide. For me, I think the Rogue Trader has the strongest uniting pull as a framework, but also gives me some flexibility in what the options are. Because remember, the Rogue Traders are these dynasties who have been given writs by the Emperor to create trade, to go out and explore several things that usually are very restricted in the 40k universe. And so by taking a Rogue Trader, the dynasty that's provided in the core rulebook, these guys are the ones who came and showed up and unlocked the Gilead system, created the path back to the main uh, side of the Imperium that still has the Emperor's light. So by aligning with that dynastic faction, you have already tied the players into a tie back to the Imperium. It is my new favorite joke, John. And so John asked me if I knew what a pirate's favorite letter was. And I said, well, I've heard this joke, right? You might think it's R, but their first love is the C. And John said, no, you're wrong. Pull up the joke so I do not butcher it for you. A writ of safe passage from His Royal Majesty, King James II. And I was like, that's a damn good joke, John Doom. Damn good joke. So why I would do the Rogue Trader is because it's focused. You have a patron, one of the Rogue Trader members of the dynasty. You have a clear goal, foster trade between the Imperium and the members of the Gilead system, as well as exploration. All right, well, cool. Fostering trade can be anything from, if your group likes political, creating new trade routes, clearing up missing cargoes, solving mysteries about the different factions and how they work together. If your group likes, more clear focus missions or combat missions, these are protecting cargoes from orc raiders or chaos cultists or the Eldari, or even the factions on Gilead. And it also allows you to say, hey, there's this new thing out there that nobody knows about. It's under our charter to go explore that. And why I say that is I would also really want to use those wonderful tables in Redacted Records 1 to expand the world by introducing one, possibly two Space Hulks. I would have one permanent Space Hulk that the group could go to and come back as often as they wanted. And then I would have sort of an intermittent Space Hulk, one that comes in and out of the warp and they never know how things are changed. And at any time they go in, they're clearly on a timer because it could blip back into the warp at any moment. So I think with two Space Hulks and a patron among the Rogue Traders, we've got a pretty solid game. Rogue Trader also allows you, if you want to expand beyond the Imperium, you kind of have that flexibility. The Rogue Traders are very much whatever it takes to get the job done. So that includes trading with the Eldari, or maybe employing some orcs for their brute strength, or even recruit mercenaries if you have access to some of the later books. So I think that gives us a good framework. Now you may be sitting there going, Jam, I don't like that framework. I want to play Space Marines. That's the whole reason I got Wrath and Glory. If I want to play regular humans, I'm just going to go off and play Imperium Maledictum or go back and play Dark Heresy. You may be saying, well, I would really much more be interested in having Inquisitor as a patron. That's fine. Again, I'm just trying to hit. You're going to want a patron who provides a framework for the group to narrow their focus as you go exploring in Gilead. Now, the other thing that I think Wrath and Glory does very well, and actually all of the Warhammer games, you really have two main threats to the players in the Imperium. You have the enemies without and the enemies within. And I would pick one each to start. So, enemies without, those are your Xenos. Those are the things that are attempting to invade and destroy humanity, which again is the focus of the great Imperium of Man. The God Emperor wants to make the entire universe safe for humanity. So you have a lot to choose from. Necron, Orcs, Eldar, Dark Eldar, Tyranids. Pick one. Pick one as the main threat that your patron is concerned about. Is it an Orc rock coming into the system that, if it lands on a planet, will infest that planet forever with Orc fungus? Is it a secret vault of Necrons that have been held in stasis? There's a rogue Mechanicum agent who is obsessed with the stasis lock and wants to see what's on the other side. The webway portals giving access to the Dark Eldar, who are sneaking in and kidnapping people. So you have this sort of existential threat from outside. If we don't stop this, it's over. Gilead collapses. And again, by picking one and then spotlighting one or two others, you get a primary threat that the group has to deal with, and a threat that only their patron has the access, the knowledge, the access, and the resources to deal with. Because one of the things that's going on in Gilead is that the rulers of the planets are very petty and focused on their own problems, and so mobilizing a planetary defense force is going to be impossible unless someone rallies them. I won't say go as far to say they're all incompetent, but they're all like pulled into their petty factions and their petty disputes. So you need someone who can rise above the system politics and send agents out to actually deal with this threat. Then you have the enemy within, and this is an insidious enemy, an enemy that looks, at least on the surface level, human, but is actually working to undermine society from the inside. So for me, the existential threat, I think I would love to have the Necrons be the existential threat. Mechanicum agent who is trying to unlock this stasis chamber in our Space Hulk that we made, and in doing so would unleash a plague upon the Gilead system. Yes, Mark, heretics is kind of our easiest one to look at for 40k, right? The chaos cults. Pick a chaos cult, have them, give them a veneer of civility, so that you have a warrior cult or a mechanicum cult that is looking into strange and new technologies. And then as the group interacts with them, slowly but surely they peel the layers back and discover we have chaos in our midst. In fact, the enemy within is the title of the great Warhammer fantasy campaign that kind of focuses on this very kind of aspect of the Warhammer oeuvre. But there can be other things, right? It could be, as Mark said, a heretical cult of the Emperor, or a heretical Mechanicum cult that is so far off baseline for the Imperium that they would be declared heretics by the Inquisition. Maybe there's a Mechanicum tech priest who's tired of waiting for people to have accidents to turn them into Skitarii, and thinks the way to protect this hive world is to turn everyone over the age of 22 into a Skitarii. Well, that's heretical, you know. Chaos Space Marines. I think I would put Chaos Space Marines more in the existential threat. But the one that I would do focus planet-wide to kind of counterbalance the idea that the Necrons, this completely mechanical Terminator-esque threat, is looming out in the system, and that the Rogue Trader is the only one who's really understanding what's going on. I would flip it on its head. I think most people would expect chaos. I'm not saying I wouldn't have chaos in a Wrath and Glory game, but I love the juxtaposition of a Necron enemy without threat and a Gene Stealer cult enemy within threat. Gene Stealer cults corrupt and mutate people, and eventually you have a hive city filled with Gene Stealers, and you know that when essentially communications go dead. So, eventually the two, you have the, like, again, the sterile mechanical external threat and the corrupting biomass internal threat, and kind of the juxtaposition of those two, I think, would make for a very interesting campaign. And I think canny players would be able to pit the two against each other. Maybe bring in the Mechanicum, which is kind of the combination of the two, to help fight them. So that's my take on how I would do a Wrath and Glory campaign. If you want to steal any or all of that, please do so. If you do so, leave a comment in the YouTube channel. Love to hear from anybody running Wrath and Glory. I'm trying to get back into answering comments. And thank you to the people who have commented on our Wrath and Glory videos and saying that they have enjoyed them. We've got several videos that have just gone live over the weekend. If you haven't checked them out, the big interview with Alexander McCrease of Acts 2 went live this morning, if you didn't catch it live. And then Evan and I published our next episode of Exploring Glorantha, so both of those are up. Now, for the rest of the month of November, a good friend and friend of the show, John Doom, has asked me to start a deep dive into the setting of Rifts, specifically through the lens of the Savage Rifts. Now, this is a world that I have spent decades in, so I'm really excited to do this. We're having Rifts Giving is what we're calling it. So tomorrow will be episode 1 of a trio of episodes looking at Rifts Giving. And then in December, we're going to be looking at Malaz Advent. We're going to be looking at the Malazan series, talking about it, giving my thoughts on them, but also looking at what we can steal for our games going forward. So until tomorrow, at the start of Rifts Giving, I want to thank everyone for showing up. We are under 15 people from hitting our 1,000 subscriber mark, and when we do that, again, I have a big stack of Fading Suns books to give away to one lucky guest. We'll do a stream, and anyone who wants to jump on that stream and get a chance for entering into the raffle for the Fading Suns books, we will do that. So until tomorrow, stay safe, stay healthy, stay gaming. I'm JM. This has been Behind the Screen, and I will see you all tomorrow. Until then, have a good one.